Let's talk about the Wicker Man.
I could a tale unfold, whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood.
I am here to investigate the disappearance of a young girl. Where is Rowan Morrison?
If Rowan Morrison existed, we would know.
I suspect murder.
Sergeant, I've already told...
In the name of God, woman, what kind of mother are you? That can stand by and see your own child slaughtered?
You are the fool, Mr. Harry.
You're liars. You are despicable little liars. God in heaven, even these people can't be that mad. Where is Rowan Morrison?
If Rowan Morrison existed, we would know.
I suspect murder.
She was back.
You are the fool, Mr. Harry.
Where is Rowan Morrison?
Oh my God!
The 2000 and what?
I almost watched the Nick Cage one. I had to ask which one we were actually watching.
I would love for you guys to watch that one just because you've seen this one now and how it's not good, but there are some hilariously ridiculous parts in it, like in that movie with Nick Cage.
Yeah, I thought this was I had only from what you had told me. Otherwise, I didn't really know too much about this movie, and I was waiting to see when a Wicker Man would come into play.
Mhm.
And yeah, the ending was kind of wild.
Well, this
Did you
was
guys
like
know, were you guys did you know anything about it really? I mean, you kind of knew because of what I've talked about it a little bit, but
All I knew is it was a cult movie, but
Okay.
that was pretty much it.
all I knew was it was this old school documentary on the starting of Burning Man, the festival. um, so I think it was HBO doc. Really pumped to watch it.
You going?
No, I
you
knew
watched the wrong
nothing.
movie.
No, I think this was it. I think saw the ending and I was like, that's it. I didn't know anything other than when you kind of had mentioned that this would pair well with Midsummer. I very quickly was like, oh yeah, obviously, big influence.
Yeah, and I 100% agree that it does fit in really well with Midsummer. I had seen Midsummer before seeing this, but now that I've seen this, I'm circling back on it and being like, wow, yeah, these are actually quite similar.
Yeah, Ari Aster was very influenced by this movie, but he didn't want you to think about it as you were watching it. He wanted to obviously make his own movie, but there were definitely hints and subtle things that he alluded to this original. But
It's like most. I remember thinking of this about Midsummer, but I think it's also true here. Is most horror movies or any movie like that, they use a little bit more of darkness just visually. This is a very light, bright movie. I felt the same way about Midsummer, which for a movie that's probably got at least some elements of horror to it. Even if it was 70s horror, which is completely different. I thought it was well done because I think it's just hard to make light, bright things spooky,
And that's what I really like about this type of movie. It's I don't know. I like it. It's fascinating to me. It's not jump out scary, jump scares.
When this came out, wasn't like a big thing at the time in horror kind of is that everything was tied to like these nighttime movies, and this was like horror but all in the daylight, so it was kind of like a new thing. Could be
Yeah,
totally wrong there, but
and it's still not even a huge thing in the horror like community. It's, I mean, there are a few obviously daylight horror films, but it's not like Midsummer was another one where it was kind of rare for that to happen. It's because it's hard to make people scared when it's bright and sunny outside. So, but
Not
what did
with
you guys think? I
cults.
want to hear what is your thoughts?
I'm like the first half of it, I was very confused because I like the guy. So the police officer shows up and, you can tell something's off. The police officer obviously thinks so because he's like, where the heck is this? I forget her name, but the girl who was missing.
Mhm.
And I don't know, just all the things they were doing were so weird, So I was mostly confused at that point. And then about I think when he like was talking, I feel like he like went to leave and then he couldn't leave. And then I was kind of like, and they kept like alluding like, oh, well, you probably shouldn't be here for May Day. You probably wouldn't enjoy that. But then when he got stuck there, I was like, okay, I can kind of start to see where this is going to go. Overall, like, I think, I wouldn't say like I loved this movie, but I also think there's an element of just like things didn't hit quite the same way just because it's an older movie. But I thought it was really well done. The guy who played the I'm drawing a blank.
Sergeant Howie.
Yes, I thought he did a good job. But yeah, I thought a good half of the movie, I was just like, what is happening? Like, just having almost like a hard time following it.
I do love that about the movie. And Dope coming in on a seaplane.
Yeah, love the seaplane.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
But, not reliable, we've learned. I watched, in the past month or two, I watched The Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 78.
Which one? Oh, the 70s one?
The Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Like young. And it's so, I think it's just the time period, but like the acting and like just the movies from that, it's like almost comical now, just the way it's done. I liked this movie way more than I thought I would. I also watched it, and very clearly, if I didn't know you liked this movie and someone showed me it, I'd be like, oh my God, this would be Joe's favorite movie. This would be right up there. It's like that old school, it like reminds me of all these like Hitchcock films, but different and cult aspect. And this may sound weird to people who don't know you, but that island, I was like, Joe would love to be here. Joe would love to be in this island.
Absolutely. That's good. That's awesome to hear that you thought about
it. The opening scene, like there was a thank you to that group that they were like kind of depicting. I want to know more about that, but I don't know too, I haven't looked into it too much, but I'd be curious to know, like, obviously it's a real island you can go to, but I'd be curious to learn more about like that, like pagan group and what that, what their customs are. 'Cause it seemed like they at least, showed some of maybe what they would actually do.
It's such a weird topic, these type of movies, which is why I like them so much. It's like these people, they're played out to be like the villain and kind of the bad people, which they do some questionable things, obviously.
They like try to sacrifice humans, but like besides that.
But besides that, but not counting that part of it. But like, I don't know, these people grow up this certain way, not knowing anything else.
It's what they know.
So it's what they know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a lot of parallels, not to jump into religion, but like the religious aspect of like when you don't grow up a certain way from the outside, it's like this shit's crazy. But it's like when you just grow up and that's your world, it's not that crazy because you're just like, that's what I've always known.
But it's also interesting because they made a few explicit references to religion where they were like, oh, that used to be like a Catholic or, Christian church or whatever. And then like, they're like, oh, well, we in the ground, of course. And then they pulled up There's actually a theme with the rabbits that I'm not sure I fully wrapped my head around, but they showed up like there was a girl drawing a rabbit, pulled the rabbit out of the grave. I don't know exactly what that was all about. I don't know if you know, Joe, but
I honestly don't. I mean, yeah, I didn't
Isn't
do
there
like
rabbits in Midsummer? Not to jump movies, but
there's. I mean, I think there are.
there
They're not huge. They don't play a huge part, but I
Okay.
think there are like a few.
Yeah.
But that going with that, it was like the sergeant. He was very narrow-minded.
this is
He
true.
was not open to anything, and I was like, yes, they're doing bad things, but he's like, oh, I'm Christian. You can only be Christian. They're the only good people. Like, chill.
And that's like kind of historically how religions have treated each other. Like everyone just assumes that they know that there's a bunch of religions out there, but they just assume that they're the right one.
Right.
You know.
Joe, I don't know if you looked into this at all, but this blew my mind. I had no idea until I looked at the IMDb. Sergeant Howie, his other big film is Hot Fuzz.
whoa.
There is a connection
Ooh.
to our movies.
Wait, hold up. I'm just trying to think.
He plays. Hold on, I can pull it up real quick.
The 1934 version of Hot Fuzz.
No, he's hold on, I'm pulling this up right now.
Also, while you're looking this up, I did want to mention that I'd love an album to this movie. The music, specifically
awesome.
that tree song where they're like spinning around the tree. I was like, this is a
It's on
bop.
Spotify.
This is
I have all those songs
it's
in
on
my Spotify.
Spotify.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
called the
stuck in my
Maypole song.
head. What's it called?
It's called the Maypole song.
In the woods there grew a tree, and a fine, fine tree was he. And on that tree there was a limb, and on that limb there was a branch, and on that branch there was a nest, and in that nest there was an egg, and in that egg there was a bird, and from that bird a feather came, and of that feather was a bed.
The Maypole song.
I
All right.
believe.
I'm gonna start listening.
Great
to it 'cause
soundtrack though. Let's get to that in 1 second. But Joe, he plays Tom Weaver.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know who that is.
We'll have to like reference back to this episode when we finally get around to watching.
It blew my mind. I was like, how did the Wicker Man and Hot Fuzz ever have a connection?
But you can see it. You can see why they're
They're both. I mean, they're both UK films.
Yeah.
So
if
makes
you
sense.
also rewind to Joe's review of this movie, the one thing he did notice say was that guy's acting was good. I think subconsciously he was like something about
like,
this guy.
In the back of my mind, I knew that there was some connection to Hot Fuzz.
But yeah, the music, it's fascinating to me because like it's not a musical, but it could be considered a little bit of a musical because they're singing, there's dancing. I don't know. It's bizarre. I don't know how to classify this one.
Like a middle school musical chooses to do the Wicker Man as their musical.
When they are singing that song around the maypole, though, it made me. That's another one that's just a very clear parallel with Midsummer. I couldn't remember if they called it the maypole in Midsummer. Did they?
Yep.
Or was that different? They did
Because
Okay.
she becomes the May Queen, or the
That's right. That's
festivals to select the May Queen.
But yeah, so I wonder if like that, assuming there's some, real history behind that, like even just like as a story, like I would be super curious to see, because there's like, just in terms of like if Midsummer takes place in Sweden and this was a island off of England somewhere. So like, I wonder if there's like actual stories about like, maybe like Vikings coming over and like somehow crossing with Celtic folk and, how, because having those similar themes in two distinct groups, like lore, I guess, there's got to be something there. They wouldn't come up with that at the same time on their own.
I would be curious to see, learn more about that because like, yeah, you're right. Like Midsummer and this one, and there's a bunch of other ones too. But like, why Europe? Like, why are these people living in the hills of Europe?
I mean, they're probably everywhere, but the fact that there's the
Where
same.
else do you live?
Yeah, it's probably
True.
just since they have similar stories. Europe was always like attacking each other. So
Right,
I mean,
right.
that seems like it's a little more recent, but
Well, so what did you guys like about it? Like, what were parts that you thought were interesting? Or
I think my favorite sequence was when like they tried to like, I'm assuming that was like that hand that they put in his room to like try and get him to like sleep for a few days, basically from then until the end. Because he like knocks the guy out and then follows, he thinks he's like going undercover and he's going to help this girl or whatever, but they totally duped him. So like, I feel like that whole thing was building. One of the actual parts of that scene that I thought was just like, I don't know, it just stood out a little bit to me, was when they had the thing with the knives, because they had that in an image and then everyone had to go and like put their head up and in, and it was like a game of chance or whatever.
Chop! 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 Chop!
Musical chairs.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, essentially.
I did write down that scene where they put the burning hand in his room. That, not to nitpick the movie, I just think it's funny. Like, one, they're like talking so loud right outside his room about like him waking up. And then just like, I don't know if this was across all movies or like if the term's ADR now. Like, they're so far away. Like, I don't know if they recorded that after or something, but it sounds like they're just speaking directly into the mic. You ever notice that like movies now, like someone's turned away, and like if they're turned away and talking, the audio sounds so different, and for them to just sound like they're talking to a mic, I just noticed it in that scene and thought it was really funny.
Yeah, that always stands out to me in movies.
Do
Like
you know
the
it was
video.
that like just like in the 70s? That's just with the technology. That's just how everything was with the audio.
I mean, this budget for this movie was very low. Like Christopher Lee didn't even get paid anything for it. Like he's a big actor at this time. Also, side note, he says this is one of his favorite, if not his favorite roles he's ever done. So,
Whoa,
Bold statement, but I like it.
yeah, me too.
I
also thought when he was when Christopher Lee was like talking to the ocean, when he's yelling, I just thought of Saruman in Lord of the Rings when he's like casting the spell of Gandalf.
He just has such an iconic voice. It's like so recognizable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you stay in the Green Man Inn?
I don't know. So we have a lot of the locations. We have most of them in the app. It's in Scotland. I really want to go. Every time I watch this movie, it makes me want to go to Scotland.
Scotland.
But I don't know if it's an
pretty
actual
good, right?
inn. I think it might be. I don't know, but I would love to go.
Go knock
That'd
on
be a
it.
fun staycation. Joe, when they were doing that, when they were walking with the costumes, I was like, Joe needs to be that horse guy for Halloween.
Oh yeah, that guy was great.
I was like, this is going to be
honest,
Joe for Halloween.
For a while, I thought the girl who was missing was just going to be under there the entire time, because he kept like going like and like.
I never thought about that. Interesting.
I thought she was just going to pop out one of those times, and she was just like, "Yep, been under here the whole time."
Yeah, I really liked how it was shot, the cinematography, and I think that around this time, a lot of those movies like that are shot kind of that handheld, kind of gritty style. It kept me captivated the whole time. I was never really bored, and it's a good runtime. It's like an hour 27 or something like that.
Solid runtime.
But yeah,
How many times have you seen this movie?
I can't even count. I've seen this. This is like a plane movie. I always watch this on a plane. I don't know why. But I always forget. Then I always forget the dancing naked lady scene, the naked lady dancing scene, and then I'm like, oh, shouldn't watch this on a plane with a bunch of kids. But whatever. I don't really care.
Now, the one thing that I don't really feel like I got a good answer on this, but do you know if they actually busted up his seaplane somehow? Like, that was the one part I wasn't really 100% sure on, because like, so like he goes back, he's gonna fly back to the mainland or whatever, and he couldn't. Now, they say they didn't do anything to the plane, but like obviously they were playing him the entire time. So I would assume that they actually did, and they just lied about that. but
Yeah.
that wasn't really made clear, I don't think.
I'm pretty sure they lied about it because they invited him there. Like they planned out this whole thing.
Okay, so that
yeah.
kind of makes sense then.
Right. So
They'll probably address it in the sequel.
Well, yeah, I am curious because aren't they making a new one?
not that I'm
Really?
aware of.
Yeah. Maybe
I hope they
maybe that
don't.
was just the Nick Cage one that I was seeing.
Yeah, that one is so interesting. I hate. I mean, I don't know. I hope they don't remake it. I hate when they try to remake, in my opinion, perfect movies. But
how different is the Nick Cage one, like plot wise?
It's not very different. It's just like
it's still a cult.
It's basically the same story.
Oh, you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of Slender Man, not Wicker Man.
Slender Man, gotcha.
Is there anything like supernatural though in the Nicolas Cage one?
I don't think so. I honestly have seen it once and I didn't like it, so I never revisited it.
Fair enough.
I think so though.
Fair enough.
I mean it's the same story. He's like a detective. He's coming to find a missing girl. I don't know. It's very interesting with the cult movies because kind of like what I was saying before, but the whole idea behind cults essentially is manipulation, and they're basically doing it the entire movie to this guy. Like they know what he's going to do. They know all of his different moves, and they're basically manipulating him a certain way.
But to that point, I feel like if you even just look back on when we watched Bad Times at the El Royale, the daughter who joined that cult, she was like fully bought in mentally, like she was drinking the Kool-Aid, whereas he was being manipulated by this cult. But he still thought he had he did have independent thought. He was just doing everything that they wanted them to do. So I wouldn't say he was like a member of the cult. I was actually surprised at how easily how much he didn't put up a fight at the end. They basically, I think he basically was just like, I'm super outnumbered here and I'm on this hill. But he kind of was just like, okay. And to the end, he was like cursing them, with I think there was like a Bible verse he said at some point. And so I feel like he was a victim of the cult for sure, but he was never like indoctrinated by the cult, if that makes sense. In the same way that I think, in other movies, like they manipulate you to make you a part of the cult and like they control you that way. This was like a different type of control.
Right. I think it's because they were planning to sacrifice him from the beginning.
Means to an end.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is this any way scary to you, like the idea or the story, or is it kind of just like, no, I would never do that. I would never happen. Like to me, the cult stories like this are kind of scary because like if I find myself in that situation, you don't know how you'd react, but they're pretty intense people.
In whose situation in this case?
I guess the sergeant.
The cult or the sergeant?
I think it'd be harder to be in the cult than it would be to be the sergeant, because like at that point you can either like fight your way out or just accept it. But either way, you're probably going to die, whereas if you're in the cult, you're like, man, like, I don't, if you had any sort of conflict and you were like, I'm either just doing this or like, I don't feel great about doing this, but I also can't really stop it. I don't know. I don't find it that scary per se. But I don't know. I'm more of the like things you absolutely have no control over. And I feel like, although that guy had no control over his outcome there, I don't know. I feel like it was humans behind it. It wasn't. I'm more of like the supernatural horror that freaks me out.
I'd say not, at least watching like not scary, but like fascinating almost. But there is a scary aspect I think like you're touching on with. Like when you're in those scenarios, you don't realize you're in the scenario. This is kind of like with the Invisible Man too. It's like when you're in that state of mind, it's just true to you. Like that's all you know. So I feel like the scary part to me is like, oh my God, like if I was in that cult, I'd have no idea. Like like that part of being like the scenario is thinking of like, oh my God, it's not even like, oh, I'm stuck and I'm battling out. It's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have
I
any
think
idea.
to me that's scary to me, because like if we're talking now and then like you're in the cult later on and you don't realize you're in the cult, that's like serious manipulation. Like somehow they got you from who you used to be to who you are now, and you didn't even realize it. So that's scary.
So I think this is when we introduce the new segment called Cult Watch, where we try and look through our normal everyday lives and make sure we haven't accidentally joined a cult.
Oh, I
That's
thought
our
we were
other
just going to go
podcast.
through like hot new cults in America, like a
we
Stefan
could do that
weekend
too.
update, but the hottest new cult.
Just in case you're thinking of joining up.
Yeah.
That would be a good check-in, every week. We're just like, hey, guy, hey, who are you hanging out with people? You guys move into like a commune or anything? What are your
if
thoughts
that's
on
the
this?
fear, if the fear is like I have joined a cult and I didn't even know I did, maybe we got to check each other on that.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of Portland, when you were like, I want to join a commune, and we were like, oh my,
Why not?
but we're good, right? We're good.
Yeah, totally.
As far as we know.
Are there other big cult movies you can think of?
I mean, there are.
Just because I'm curious, because it does seem like it's like, like Joe said, like it's in bad times, but you wouldn't call it a cult movie. But it seems like such a big topic, especially like nowadays with cults and like, like Wild Wild Country, that the doc, the Oregon one, and like
Right.
Nexium. Like there's all these. I feel like it's like a big thing, but I don't think of movies as being a lot of cult.
Oh yeah,
movies.
that's true. I mean, I've seen like a bunch, and there's none that really like. The Wicker Man's one that just sticks out to me is, I don't know, it's great. There's one I watched the other day called The Other Lamb. I think it's on Hulu. I was very bored the entire movie. It wasn't good. I feel like not many that I've seen capture the atmosphere or like the vibe that I'm looking for in a cult movie. Like Midsummer does it perfectly.
That I'm searching for in my cult.
That I'm searching for. But Midsummer and this one do it, in my opinion, the best. And there are a few movies that have like Bad Times, where it's like a subplot of the movie, which also do like, I think they did it in Bad Times pretty good. They did a pretty good job in that movie.
Or it's like dystopic, right? I mean, or like, would you consider like Handmaid's Tale, or is that just like total dystopia?
It's hard. It's a fine line.
I would say that's dystopia, but I haven't gotten super into that one. The one that came to mind for me was like anything to do with the Manson murders and that whole.
Yep.
What's the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Granted, that went way less into like the Manson than I thought would happen, like going into that movie. But
he was in it.
Yeah, but I mean that's like a cult. That's they didn't go super deep into it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just saying I was actually kind of like hoping the movie would be more about it, and it kind of was like it was about it, but it kind of just was happening.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I loved how they did it in Once Upon a Time. I thought it was really, really well done.
Cool. Any final thoughts here?
Anything on the ending?
IMDb trivia. I did read that he
yes,
that scene where he's like the end scene where he's kind of on, they're on the cliffs basically, right before they take him to the Wicker Man. Apparently he had his cue cards were kind of set up around the cliffs. So when he had, he didn't remember his lines, I guess. So there were just cue cards hidden in the rocks that he was looking at, which was
that's funny.
I don't know.
That'd be funny if they were all over the place. Like as he's saying lines, he's
like, Jesse, that would be one of your movies. Or the cue card would be in the shot. Like you could see it in the back, or like a mirror, like a reflection or something.
Just comes into the. Did you guys just really quick on the ending have any happy with the ending? Just kind of happens. You're just kind of like, okay.
I liked it because it just ended. Like that's how it would happen in reality. So I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it all tied together, and then they just left it there, and that's I almost think that's better than like creating a cliffhanger, like having. Sometimes I feel like they resolve everything, and then they have like 5 minutes of like wrapping everything else up, and I think they just kind of like ended right at the high point, and that was it. And I thought I don't feel like many movies actually do that, so I kind of liked it.
I agree. I love when movies do that.
You don't want
my
to see
only
like the
thing-
ashes and then his hand pop out and then it cuts to black.
Yeah, then they all
You
like
know there's
walk
gonna be
back
some-
down to the town and they're like, great, our crops are going to be amazing next year. And then they then cut to black, you know. It's like, wow, I did not gain anything from that last 5 minutes.
Or they walk down and they all go, I think we messed up. What are we doing?
My only thing I wish they did was I wish they ended on an aerial shot, like a pretty far away from the island, so you could just see the Wicker Man burning, and then
You
you
mean
could
a
see how
shot from
really
a seaplane?
exactly
How they started the movie.
that's what I'm saying. I wish they did that because then you can see how small this community is in like a huge, an ocean. Like I just wish we saw like that one big shot at the end, but
Yeah.
other than that, like the ending, it's good.
Maybe we do. We take a trip there. We get a seaplane. We shoot that last shot, and then we do our own cut of the ending.
Add that into the end of the movie.
On screen, director's cut. On screen cut.
That would be fun though if we went and we did like an on-set screening there.
That'd be cool.
That would be super cool. Let's get everyone to fly to Scotland.
Hey,
That's
down.
cheap, right?
Well, I don't even think they're accepting Americans at the moment, but someday.
Do you have a good accent?
Probably not.
Sweet.
Do we
that's
just want to go around and start trying to do accents? That's what this
yeah.
turns into. We're just
To circle back on my overall take on the movie, I think we're gonna be implementing a new rating system, which is basically just a 1 to 10. But we're gonna rate it to at least this week. We're gonna rate it based on Bowfingers. So I'm gonna give this movie 7 Bowfingers.
Ooh.
that's much
Wow.
higher than I thought you'd give it based on your initial.
Me too.
No, like it was a good. I was like, I enjoyed the movie. I was just very confused until about halfway through.
Fair enough.
Makes sense.
But you know me, I like when movies like kind of come together at the end, and I feel like this kind of did. So it had like a little bit of that for me, which I really liked.
I'd give it an 8. 8 Bowfingers.
Wow.
Maybe like up to a knuckle 8.33
A Bowfinger.
Bowfingers.
Sweet. I love that you guys rated this pretty high. What was some of your favorite parts about it?
What do you get?
Mine is a 10 out of 10 Bowfingers.
10
This
out of
is
10.
probably this is my
10
top
Bowfingers
3 of
up.
all time, I think. Maybe at least top 5. I don't know. I haven't ranked all my favorite films yet, but it's definitely up there. Definitely 10 out of 10. This is my type of movie. This is very up my alley.
Mhm.
Couldn't ask for anything better.